Well, I'll continue on my series about uh, the Velikovsky and universe, the Olympic universe, and cosmology with ancient mythography, which I'm very familiar with, more than most mortals. I've been listening to Wallace Thornhill, the Australian physicist. And what else did he say? He's a physicist, and he said he was a psychiatrist. In this latest one I've been listening to, but he's also had some Aboriginal stories from Australia, which were very compelling and remind me of all the other stuff that I know about this from all the different mythologies about the wars in heaven. And he even has one where there were two suns in the sky, and there was an exchange of a spear and a lash, like a he calls them a plasmoid, like a tentacle of electricity between two static objects. Because when all the planets were close together, is the Velikovsky theory, it was an electrical standing battle between them as to sorting out who got to be where in the orbits. They basically all separated into their current orbits, as Plato talks about, into their harmonic locations. They're in the harmonic spheres. And electrics and music are all interconnected, and not just because we use electrical amplification, but because of the nature of frequency. And yeah, anyway, this whole body of knowledge gets really fascinating the more I listen to it, that it justifies the existence of the ancient concept of the ether. And this again raises in question, remember I mentioned Heraclitus being educated at Haran, as was Pythagoras, of what else was in, not just under the seas, but what else was in the ancient libraries that were destroyed, which were many. It wasn't just Alexandria that had libraries, you know, many places did. Many books got burned, many pools of knowledge got burned, and many elders passing down ancient wisdom got slaughtered. Now, this also, historically, it has me wondering what happened in Sabia, in Upper Chaldea, to distinguish between the two kinds of Sabian, the kinds from Yemen and the kind from Upper Chaldea. And a Sabian means people, it's somebody who are peoples of the book. They're considered like Jews and Christians. In the Quran, they're considered people who are okay and they should be left alone. They're people they have a doctrine and a belief and thing all their own. And they come from a region where all kinds of other beliefs like Yazid and Alawites and stuff come from, and where Darin Kuyu is. And the legends say that the Celts came from the land of the four cities and their magical stones and spear and so on. Okay, so that whole area is where the star cults emerged from. But in that case, then everything else there that might be in the library, if there is still one under the basement of the temple of Hermes Trismegistus, there was probably a lot of oral knowledge there. There's always been a tradition about something called Song of the Stars, where I guess it was the ephemeris, where they memorized the tales telling the story of the battle in the stars. And this was the basis of astrology, and it is why astrology is so important to ancient times. Because these were objects that had done some nasties in prior centuries. And that's what the augurs, the younger generations had forgotten what the ancients had known, and various generations of the different tribes and within Rome and within other empires got slaughtered or killed or died off without passing on knowledge, because only so much knowledge can be passed on from generation to generation. Moses, touch the person and have them know everything I know. Like Anne Rice's vampires can, and they bite each other. And sometimes it feels like that when you're holding the other person, but what they're feeling and what they're feeling are probably two very different things. But not always, but it gives you energy because it's full of energy. It energizes your system because you are an electrical being. We're all electrical beings. Our electricity is the pattern. Our soul is the pattern that manifests our destiny and fate. And everything that happens, fate. There's a different fate and destiny. I won't get into the philosophical issues. There's too many. There's always philosophical. But the one with the electrical universe. The problem with the title that I have to always come up with for one of these is that I can't put everything I want in the title. Just as like I can't put everything I want in here. So I wanted to include in the title, after saying the lash of heaven, the Heraclitean fire. The fire of Heraclitus. The fire is the lightning, lightning is the fire, fire is all things, lightning is all things. Zeus is the lightning, Zeus is knowledge, Zeus is the pattern in your brain that makes you think, and all his sons and daughters are deities. But in one time, what got us to start thinking like this was a dance in heaven between great objects in the sky, two suns. Now it appears that one was Saturn. and Jupiter appeared the same size at whatever situation this was as about the moon. And it's close enough for the static charges between the planets, or the corpus of electrical things that manifest as planets, because each one gathers material around it, and not for gravity, but by electrical forces, positive and negative. It's really complex. It is complex in a way, Velikovsky and electrical universe. It is complex, and I say that Tesla is the same. Tesla understood all this stuff. Tesla understood that everything is fire. He could make it into things, and gave us the Tesla coil, and is why we have alternating current, is because Tesla understood all this stuff, and why he could do all the things he claimed to do. But Claes also was this ancient philosopher who's one of the first one you study, history of science. He came in Parmenides, who said that everything was static. It was like water. Well, water is not static. Water is also full of static electricity, as is the land, as is the sky, as is the universe, as is the whole fabric of the universe, the substance that the ether is. Yeah. Now they know that the thing about this electric universe thing. I'm going to stop stroking my beard, although it looks very sage, doesn't it? I've got to hold this thing. That'll keep me from speaking like a wizened old sage on a mountaintop. But which is how some feel sometimes. I'm stroking it to be able to think, actually, because the electrical cosmos allows for things. When they explain in some of the other videos I was watching on the other set of videos, the one about the planets, Thunderstone. No, it's the name of the other videos that I've been referring to, which are on somewhere on another machine. This one, I'm on my phone here. The things like they show the star generating pillars of what look like smoke, but he says these are all like naturally called for by electrical patterns. These are all the star formation things, those spirals of galaxies. It's all electrical. There is no black hole at the center of galaxies. There are plasmoids. They're electrical. Catholic heretic, philosophical heretic. They talk about how Galileo didn't get burned. Well, Giordano Bruno did, so he was like an Italian Goethe, kind of, I think. I got to find out what I can about him. But it was like Julian, the Emperor Julian, being offed, and then when the Christians burned all the libraries and all of Heraclitus. So I'm going to get back to Haran now. Because during the Byzantine Empire, although the Mongols got there afterwards, 1076, and we think now, Manzikert hadn't happened yet. That was still Byzantine Empire then. The Mongols attacked the Byzantines? I guess they did, because maybe they'd already lost that to the Turks. I don't think so. 1076 was Manzikert, when the Turks swept into Anatolia. But the Mongol invasions had already come through. No, I think it's 1276. I really got to look up that date. But the point is, whoever had it by then, it had been Haran, when the armies of Muhammad marched through on the way to Istanbul to lay siege in the 8th century, right? Which is why Istanbul is one of the 4 sites of the Islamic world, because Muhammad's standard bearer is buried there, right? They came through Upper Chaldea, where are these ancient universities and temples of learnings and people who know all the movements of the stars and taught the Phoenicians all the movements of the stars so they could sail. And where it seems that they were the retreatees, those who retreated from the Mediterranean, the flood of the Mediterranean in 200 meters or whatever it was in 6,000 BC, but the Black Sea flooded and the Bosphorus broke through. Or in 12,800 before that, when it came up by 400 feet, right? When the Hiawatha object vaporized the Arctic Ocean and half the Laurentian ice cap, Laurentian Greenland Cordilleran ice cap, and launched the Missoula floods and other activity, including, I believe, a great wave that probably hit Europe really nasty. Which is why the northwest coast of Scotland and Ireland and Norway is so red. That's not just cutting the ice, that's washing the ice away. And doing more. So some of that stuff is cut by, it's like, well, maybe that wasn't all cut by glaciers then. I don't know. I'm not a geologist enough to say. But the concept strikes me as quite plausible, considering the size of the wave that could come from such a thing happening. What did come. And then there's this talk about the structure of the Earth is not what we think it is, right? And there was this thing about the crust displacement within the mantle and the crust shifting, and the sky moving and the stars moving. But this could have all been caused by an electrical activity, right? So everything in the Yellowstone volcano and all the volcanics and the Ring of Fire that we know about, that's all an electrical pattern. And there are static properties between the plates and between the ice on them and the water, the bodies of water. And like I say, we have this body of warm water off here. This is warmer, it's going to have a different charge than the rest of the ocean, warmer than it usually is. So it's a certain thing going on in it, whether it's being caused subsurface or something within the body of water that's acquiring a static thing somehow, but where that's coming from. Now, the planets aren't as close as they were before this happened, if it did happen. I'm just going off on the Velikovsky, right? So it's not likely to happen again anytime soon. But it does point a way. Shabsky books. I'm going to sip my Neocitrin, which I finally went and got, and it's getting cold. It's still a little better than lukewarm. I've had a cold. So we have an ancient history, all of us, our ancestors, was in a world where the coastline before 20,000 BC was somewhere, let me think now, like I say, whatever it is, 60 meters, so 200 feet. However far down Dwarka is when Dwarka was drowned. Because we know it came up 125 feet. 125, 130 meters, I'm thinking 120, 125 meters is 400 feet, something like that, right? I'm old, I think imperial system. But I hear some meters, so I have to do numbers in my head, So, and then in 20,000 it came up by, that's just somebody's name line. It's the guy who found it, is this lower water line from sudden, not a sudden, but the maximum of the ice cap at 20,000 years, which had stood for 100, 200,000 years, 300,000 years. And remember, ice has a charge, different charge than the water and the land. So every body of ice that's on the planet would carry a large static charge, as would the water, of a different kind of charge, as would the exposed land, as of a different kind of charge. And if we were closer to other planets, as we still are to the moon, which is interestingly just at exactly the same size as the sun in our view, and at one time apparently also was the same with Saturn. No, with Jupiter, they said. But for some reason Saturn was bigger and was the prevailing sun until Zeus booted him out of heaven. Now Zeus is Jupiter, but also has become the sun, Apollo, and then Venus, they say in these videos, is the comet. But which comet? The one in 6,000 BC, the one in 12,800 BC, or the one in 20,000 BC. So we have tribal memory. There were only so many of us who survived 12,800. And stories got passed down. Some became the Bible, some became the Anima Lash, some became the Book of Enoch, some became the Mahabharata and the Rig Veda. I don't know the name of the Chinese books. It also occurs to me that this whole story about the Japanese royal family being descended from the sun, I don't know. I'm just mentioning that many of these deities wind up not just being the morning star, but also being associated with the sun. But that this is a new sun. This is a new sun that was born, like it says in the Voluspa, there was a new sun born. That's what the Voluspa says. And I believe the Voluspa is a memory rather than a forecast. It's misunderstood, and I won't get into my beliefs about why it is written and so on. But there was the great years of darkness, and supposedly Krakatoa that split Sumatra and Java apart. If Krakatoa did that, and it's still alive, little girl. I want to call her a BITC, but she's still alive, and she's the daughter of the Lord Fire, Surtur, the Lord of the Fire Giants. Yeah, okay, I'll buy out the whole line. I'm just saying it, not in a literally. It doesn't require lots of particles. It doesn't require a strong nuclear force, or the one I heard about them just finding. It only requires one force. It requires magnetoelectricity. They're the same thing. They just manifest in matter and time space in different ways. And again, we're limited by our understanding of time space because of the nature of our consciousness. But our consciousness has been programmed within this large thing, by the larger thing, to be able to manifest and understand this. That in itself is a miracle, right? That when you would begin to consider it, even though in Hinduism they say you can't really comprehend the true reality because your mortal limitations, your eyes, the limitations of your eyes, the limitation of the way your mind thinks, your ears, all you all have certain frequencies, certain things you can do, and certain logical where everybody thinks in yes/no processes. I've been thinking in not just Westernocentric processes, the way we think with science and our attitudes to religion and the timeline of history and culture and what's worthwhile and what's progress. Progress is a Darwinian concept that has been exploited by the industrialists. Static state is the only way the planet can survive. Now, Goethe's Faust is a warning from the 1700s. It's a warning. I see that now. There are other books like that, and William Blake's Jerusalem poem is very much also a warning, of the dangers of tampering with creation. But too late. You guys lost. You didn't do the magic. You didn't do the magic formula right. You didn't keep nature stable. But you didn't know better. It was fun to fuck and get lots of kids, and hey, look at all these workers we can have, and now humanity is just collateral for the wealthy, who intend to survive what's coming, which they know is coming. They have smart people around to tell them what's coming. They know. They don't want everybody else to know. It's the way it is. It's always been that way. But also in the ancient world, God, I'll get back to this again. So, what was at Haran, which is where the star cults were that survived, even the Islamic army that would destroy all bit of knowledge. They said, no, we're Sabians. They knew to say they were Sabians, right? Somebody told them that, right? So it worked. But it preserved all that knowledge. But I think that area got ravaged by the Byzantines during the iconoclast heresy. Now, maybe the Byzantines also weren't able to damage Haran and get at the temple of Hermes, or the Hermes Trismegistus, which is supposedly within the temple of the seven planets. There's a library that would be older and greater than Alexandria's. Much older. Hermes was a real person the way Imhotep was. They were all real people. All names that you hear in history were real people, of the humans anyway. Of the gods, well, that's another story. But they were in the heavens and they were at war. The war between the giants and the titans was commemorated on the great altar of Pergamon, which also had a great library. Not as good one as Alexandria, but it wouldn't have had things that had been in Nineveh. It wouldn't have had things that were in Iran. It wouldn't have had things that never made it to Alexandria from India. There's all kinds of things wouldn't have been there, but what would have been there was the knowledge of the stars and what had happened. And all those people may have been slaughtered by the Christians. And the conversion, the depredation of the Christian conversion were one of the great crimes against what we call science. Mountain somewhere, maybe there's a lost library at Nineveh. Maybe something in the way of writing will be found at Giraffe to realize on some of the things that are found at Giraffe from 8500 BC, which are all the events of Sumer that are being talked about in these videos I've been watching. I'm only at 24 minutes. I've covered a lot of ground, haven't I? But Giraffe is 8500 BC, and all the symbology of Sumer is obvious. Sumer especially, although there are some motifs that are shared with the Indus and with the Thracian civilization, and of course all humanity was related at some point. We're all kin. Even, I won't get into it, but we're all kin at some point. When we became strange, we don't know. These huge devastations that would have separated us for millennia, they broke our centuries. They did that, When was language broken? Well, I don't know. They say in the Golden Age. They say the breaking of the tower. But the Golden Age seems to have been the 20,000 BC impact. Before that, Golden Age, where there's these stories about bodies buried deep, giant bodies buried deep in Ethiopia, at this certain location within the Great Aksum, Aksum was a great civilization, every bit as great as India or Persia or Rome or any of China, any of them. Aksum was another great civilization, but it's gone now because the frankincense disappeared because of the conversion and Islam. There's no more cremation. There's no more pagan temples. And when the pagan temples of frankincense, touch your eye, and you hear the God speak to you. But whatever was on your mind, and you impugn with the electrical force of the universe. I'm wondering what the properties of frankincense might be. Yeah, I'd like to try some. And you know, there's Terence McKenna who talks about mushrooms being our way to our portal to the other planets because the mushrooms are a collective mind. And once you've taken enough of them, I guess you get enough. It's like the thing with cats. You pet a cat too much, as a fungus infects you, make you love cats. Put them on. You know, it's that same kind of thing that it feeds on you, right? But the electrical thing, combined with mycology, and I bet you there's electrical properties in mycology too. You know, which is mushrooms, right? Where's my neocitrin? That's all such fascinating stuff, and I'm not a teacher. I find writing laborious. I can do it. I can write faster than I type. No, sorry, I can type faster than I think. Almost. But my computer can't keep up with me. I'm getting old, I'm getting sloppy. And nobody reads text anymore of the length and kind of thing and the long, convoluted, extremely long stream of consciousness grammar that doesn't take forever to get to the final ending of a sentence. You know, and because of my more academic background and poetry and novels and everything from science, you know, you always come to your conclusion last. Same as you do when you're speaking Greek or German, you come to the verb last. Conceptual structure. The other languages do that too. Japanese is another one. They come to the verb last. But the lash of heaven is the title of this. The lash of heaven. The whips of the gods that whipped each other and speared each other in heaven and fought and aligned themselves into their present positions, in which we studied ever since it became astrology, eventually became astronomy, and we made the mistake of thinking that it was all about Newton, it was all about gravity, but Newton was never the full answer. And in order to justify Newton and the implications of Newton, they come up with the strong nuclear force to justify how. I'm tempted to go on about politics, but I'm talking. Is it metaphysics? This is not metaphysics. Metaphysics is what lies beyond physics. But physics, this is cosmogony. Cosmology is the beginning. What is the nature of the origin of the cosmos? Is cosmogony. Cosmology is the study of cosmology, knowledge of the field. And it's funny because when I went back into university after a long conversation with a guy in a doctoral program at Santa Barbara at Goleta one night back in 1977 was what made me go back into university. I went back to SFU and wound up in all the wrong courses, you know. But I went into a course called Myths, Fictions, and History, the meaning of experience and the nature of myth and recording history. And I was always of the opinion in that course that there was always literal truth in all of the stories, that they were not symbologies for allegories. They weren't allegories. They weren't metaphysical. Like a long time myself, I've been looking at Greek gods as Norse ones as aspects of the self and of the divine, of your inner soul and who you are, you know, your aspects, the muses of Apollo and so on, and being an Orpheus, and you know, the power of Aphrodite and the power of Eros and stuff within your being, the power of Dionysus, you know, God immanent in man. But while they became to be that, and there's a very rich tradition, including Buddha being at the center of the universe, protected by the electrical fires of the powers of the gods, you know, in his stability, and maybe Nirvana, maybe Nirvana is actually, you know, getting your electrical system in tune with the cosmos. You just go to existence is what you do. You're in harmony. Her in Mandarin. Her, I think the word is. I remember learning it during the Olympics, the Beijing Olympics. Mandarin I should learn. It's been hard in British Columbian, but I need to be more open-minded, and I will be. It's been hard. But I see another perspective on the world that I want to know more about, and there's much in Central Asia to be learned from. And we haven't found Kaf yet. We haven't found, they exist, these cities in the mountains that you hear about. Under the Caucasus, also under some in the Kunluns and the Himalayas, or somewhere in the Tian Shan, or Khyber, or the Altai, somewhere. There's more than one probably. And not just lost cities. I mean, some lost life of something, some other piece of art that unwraps another layer of knowledge for all of us, or some record of these floods, which is like why with the Hiawatha impact. Let's call it the Hiawatha impact for now. Presume meteor, not electrical discharge, or even if it was with electrical discharge that hit Mars, and that's a chunk of Mars that got hit by the electrical discharge from Jupiter that hit Mars, and somehow Saturn wound up booted out of the sky as number one god and went back behind Zeus, Jupiter. And Zeus is boss planet now, even though Venus is the one you see all the time because she's closer in. But of the outer planets, yeah, Jupiter's boss planet. And there's missing planet there. And there's these mysterious rocks all over Mars, and there's pile of gravel at Nimrod, and a lot of other things we can't explain. With the Hiawatha impact, getting back to what I just said, a little tangent went off. But that wave that I suggested might have hit the British Isles and Norway, would have washed over Siberia, buried it, including all the animals, and then froze them. And then there's fires everywhere. Just a volcano all by herself, or a lash of heaven, eruption from within our planet, some other cosmic thing going on somewhere else, even just with the moon at a certain tidal position or something passing by, that erupted. That was 537, 541 AD. And much happened. The Strait of Justinian was darkened for 3 years and got cool. And we've always just thought about it as volcanic, the same as the other times we had volcanoes, same with Thera. But all volcanoes are electric. Like you get thunderstorms and all kinds of things, vortices around, electrical vortices around the discharge of the magma. This is a discharge of a static thing from within the planet. And all the currents and all the clouds and everything, they're all electrical currents. The blood in your body is all electrical currents. Matter, and light is an electrical current that we see. It's electromagnetic radiation. Now, if we could become that and travel along it, that's the way we get around the universe, folks. But are we all going to be able to do that from our destroyed planet? Well, I don't think so. Not unless you get really smart. Some people are. Maybe we're working on this. Maybe that's what they are working on. Okay. But I see the path. But I see the nature of ancient history now that there's so much more that we don't know, that all memory was wiped away by the rising of the sea in 20,000 BC, again in 12,800 BC, and again in 6,000 BC, and then by volcanic eruptions since, and who knows what they really are, and what's really causing, what else is going on under Greenland, for example. They know there's something going on under Antarctica that they don't understand. The warm spot. And we've got this warm spot in the Pacific that's affecting all the weather, and weather is all about electricity, which was the whole point of the HARP project in Alaska. What are the Yankees doing at Thule anyway? Thule's right just in that same area, the Hiawatha crater. And it's sort of magnetic pole areas. The magnetic pole now is near Nuuk. I think it's in southern Greenland now. It's been moving. It does that a lot. But that's also the crust and the mantle being different, because the mantle, the iron and the mantle, if that's what it is, the dipole of the magnet, the planetary magnet, is moved from. It used to be about Victoria Island, East Victoria Island, about where Resolute is, between there and Ellesmere. Now it's moved southeast. It's on the other side of Greenland now. It's moving. Now that doesn't mean anything necessarily seismic, but it does infer the. How can it not, though? Really, but when you say that the crust and the mantle aren't bonded, they're not stuck to each other. Now, in Velikovskian thinking, they can disengage from each other and give us a nasty little spin and a shake up, and the earth opens up, the seas well right over. The seas lurch like a half-mile high water. You see that movie, 2012? Yeah, things like that can happen. Not the way they had it happen, but that concept of the mega wave, the mega wave. Truly scary. But it does explain a lot of certain landscapes and why only some places are gone. And whatever did happen to this second half of Kier Angus? So that's part of the mystery there. And it's in Galway. Go look it up. It's Beaufort. oh, excuse me, or whatever came out of the discharge. But I said in my previous video that what's in the bottom of the Hiawatha crater, and one of those is sitting in the lobby of the National Institute in Copenhagen. Maybe that's not from outer space. Maybe that's like planetary material that got ionized into metallic ore by being at the magnetic pole when an ion discharge off the poles took place with whatever else. But it caused a huge wave. It caused a huge fire. It caused a re-ice age and killed off whole species. We were lucky to have survived. We remember it. We remember it as our earliest memory. So what these videos also do, which I like, is to bring up to science that science has been too closed. It's been too much in its own box, and that's what's happened when you start specializing too much. Because the old curriculum used to be physics, which included all natural science, physics, which is all you can't study is natural science. In other words, religion, philosophy, theosophy, theology, all that stuff. Right? Poetry's in that league. Then you have rhetoric, study of words, philology, I think, is in there, language, medicine is in there, mathematics. Not just mathematics, not only mathematics like you get now with cosmology. Everything is mathematics now, as these videos point out. It's all mathematics, because you need mathematics to justify the relativistic Newtonian universe that's all gravity. You need it. Well, you do need it too with electrics, but it's a much more unified theory. It's a much more simple theory, and simple theories are how science is built on. So, oh, I'm smiling at myself because I lost it. I lost my tangent there. But yeah, the simplicity of the story just makes perfect sense. But in terms of ancient history, it reveals so much about what we don't know, about what we don't know about history, that we have to consider, when we talk about the ancient time, we have to remember when we're talking about something that, like Haran, when Haran was built, where the shoreline was built in Haran, what was on the bottom of the Black Sea and the bottom of the Gulf of Odessa. And I think you could get to Cyprus by land. Cyprus has stuff that's that. Cyprus is stuff that goes back that old, very old, and anywhere that goes back very old. But what's down below that's even older? Well, there's probably a lot. But the electrical, this all ties into this electrical discharge thing, you see, because remember the parting of the Red Sea? Electrical discharge can explain that. It can also explain a lot of the things that came down the fire on the mount too. I don't know about the Ten Commandments, but the Ten Commandments. But in terms of the finger, the fire of heaven, and the fire of God, and the lash of heaven, and the sword of Rudra, and the sword of the lance of Poseidon. Poseidon. You notice he's got a thunderbolt in his arm. He's got arms as much as his brother Zeus is. And they say Hades was the most handsome of the gods, and he stole Persephone because Zeus was a philanderer, and Poseidon, I can't remember, Poseidon a bachelor? Anyways, Poseidon had some kind of odd kids, didn't he? It was a tale. Anyways, the Nereids and the nothingness here and there, right? They can't explain them. Well, the electrical thing can explain them. The electrical universe can explain them. The Heraclitean universe is the fire. We are the fire. Our mind is the fire. My mind is on fire right now. Yeah, okay, you make all the jokes you want. That stuff, but why was it created? Why was it created? So that things like pot and mold and mushrooms would allow you to see visions and understand great things far beyond yourself. And you don't need mathematics to do it. You just need an open mind and the willingness to learn and to listen. The same is true in politics. And it's really hard getting people where I live to talk. I'm going to get rid of Michael One Eye effect. I've been in the shadow, but yeah, Michael One Eye, I go by that because one of my eyes is wonky, I wear these so I can see the screen and see myself. I've got to get a no glare thing for them though. It's cost me a little bit of money once I get some money. Speaking of which, I'm going to run a Patreon, so please, let me know that you'll support a Patreon. Just leave me a comment and it'll motivate me to get it done. I'm busy moving, I'm busy packing. I took the break off today all day to do these. But I got some more packing done. It's almost done. The clothes are done. I still have to make a salad. Yes, I did eat my pancakes. I'm an old man. I'm not that old, but I'll be strong again. And I'll be living in the mountains. And I'll have more time to do this. I hope. I hope. I hope once I'm off of the mountain. That's my whole point of moving there. I'm looking forward to it. I am in line for seniors housing, and I do need a stable place so I can be able to do things abroad and come home to somewhere and have more money than is government support. So I'm going to be doing at first a GoFundMe for my teeth and other needs, and then Patreon for long-term support for me as a combined poet, cosmologist, writer, historian, composer, musician. Speaking of which, I'm about to do another video. I have my very beautiful Hungarian shepherd's whistle that I bought on the streets of Budapest. Here, I'll hold it back here to me. At a table on Vajrud's near one of the bridges. I could identify the spot on the map. It's got 6 walls, and they're there. And it sounds really sweet. And I've been playing a Pathfinder whistle I bought at Watson. I couldn't find a Clark. And this is different than a Clark, but it's all wood. It has a beautiful tone. So I want to play it at Haran. I want to play it at Ephesus. I want to play it on the walls of Constantinople where I once walked and looked at the setting sun. Behind me, with the setting sun behind me. And walked on the walls of Constantine and Delphi and Epidaurus. There's other places I want to go, and I want to go back to my ancestral France, and my ancestral Norway, my ancestral Ireland, and ancestral England, and my ancestral, apparently also my ancestral Haran, because that's where we came from. That's where Punic culture came from, that gave the Norse their culture, and where, story says between the Punics and the Egyptians that there's this long time with the British Isles for the tin trade. All the bronze of the ancient world had to use the tin from the British Isles. That's where I know our home is, our true home. Anyway, but we're just little sparks of sentient electrical matter, and so are the elephants and the whales, and so are the octopi. There's all kinds of intelligent beings on this planet. We're just vain enough to think that we're the only ones that matter, and so we own memory of the ancient times, and everybody has their own memory of the ancient times. We all have them, but they know that you can't keep on destroying the earth and expect to live. So people are saying, well, I need pipelines to be able to pay for my kids, my jobs, and my future. Well, you don't. If you really care about your kids, you'd stop building pipelines tomorrow. But humans are what they are. This is why we've proliferated and why we've ruined the world. And we had our chance. Like I said, Faust was a warning, and there were other warnings. And even the Orthodox, really, of course, Muslims under the Ottomans, the Janissaries are very much opposed to industrial progress for very much the same reasons that Goethe was. I haven't looked into that. The Islamic arguments against industrialization in the Ottoman Empire were quite strong. And maybe again, we need to have a look at that. In India too, look at India now, there's so many of them, and China. Now, India actually, I think is the country of the future more than China, because China now at a point where it can embrace social change, which it needs to deal with. It is doing a magnificent job of ordering society, but it's crushing the human soul still. Is that the future? I don't know. But India is a proliferation of ideas and cultures, and it's the oldest civilization that's intact. It is a reflection of what ancient Greece and ancient Scandinavia and ancient Celtic and Gaulish world and ancient Iberian, Punic, Haranese, whatever that world is, the Chaldean world, the world of the fertile peasant, Egypt and the Chaldees. The Chaldees, there's two. The of the Chaldees is the southern Chaldea. Northern Chaldea is Edessa, Haran, Urfa, Nineveh. And then Assyria is the eastern fringe of it. So Nineveh, the library. Nineveh is the library of the Temple of Seven Planets in Iran. The library, maybe there's still a library at Pergamum hidden. Maybe there's something in Corinth. Maybe the library was the school of Epicurus in Athens from the Monostreki Metro. Maybe at Herculaneum, maybe in some unfound scroll yet. Maybe somebody will find the rest of the school. But maybe somebody will find things that we haven't even thought of looking for yet. There's only so much time left. Anyway, I've only got so many years left on the planet. I'm still doing a good job of holding us under an hour instead of an hour and a half. I hear I was looking at this 20 minutes ago and thinking, oh, I'm doing good 20 minutes now. It's 51, half an hour. But I think I pack a lot of information in. So I am going to do a Patreon. If you've been listening this long, you probably like what I'm talking about. So even if it's a buck or two, $1 donations are welcome. I should probably put that in the headline when I do my Patreon video. $1 to $2, $5, $10, small donations are welcome. If everybody throws me a quarter, in the world, well, that's a whole lot of quarters, isn't it? And there's a whole lot of stars in the universe, sparkling, Götterfunken, shining sparks of God, as Schiller calls them in the famous Ode to Truth. Schöne Götterfunken, beautiful spark of God, schöne Götterfunken. Das wir sind. That is what we are, according to that poem. Song. Da 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 da. Everybody knows that song. Beethoven. The man who took a hammer to form. He tried to wake us up. Anyways, Velikovsky woke us up. Mr. Tesla woke us up and brought a whole bunch of marvels to pass that science put to some rather evil uses. But they've done that with anything they've found out. It's the nature of the Faustian curse that Mephistopheles gave knowledge, and knowledge without morality is a dangerous thing. And development and fostering children without respect for the earth and its longevity and all other species and all other forms of life is a dangerous thing, and it is killing us. So I'm fine. And it doesn't matter whether Facebook or so on have control of it for now, Google. We all should own it. We all own our DNA. We all own knowledge of the past. Or we should. As much knowledge of the past as I can find out and explain for you, that's what I'm here as the young professor to do. It drives me. It makes my day happen. I haven't eaten. I haven't trimmed my beard days because I've been thinking about this so much. I am getting my packing done, and I better go have a salad. I better grab a salad after I play some whistles. So I'll start the whistle video in a second after I finish, because I'll always play beautifully if I'm hungry, and I always think very clearly. Fraser, I've got to keep telling that story for you. You know the one I mean. I'm speaking to a friend about something he wants me to write. Knowledge is dangerous, but the world is dangerous if you don't have knowledge. The world is far more dangerous if you don't have knowledge, and history is dangerous because it will be repeated on you if it's kept from you, especially if it's kept from you. They plan to repeat it on you or something worth. So learn your history, learn your science, learn about the ancient past, especially if you're young. It's more fascinating than you know. Now, nobody is going to, I'm going to have to take clips of this and make little video commercials of myself. History, if you don't learn your history, it will be repeated on you, but learn your ancient history, it's more fascinating than you know. It's well worth learning. History well worth learning, as the history guy calls it. But yeah, I know more than I need to know. So the only thing you do when you've got too much of something is try and give it away and hope somebody learns it. Because I've been given a lot of learning by the forces that have descended on me, the electrical fire in my head since I was a kid. And I actually used to have like electrical jolts inside my head, like bolts of heaven. And there I did, right? So now I'm beginning to understand that all these things even show in a brain scan, they show as little ischemias, the neural system. They were brainstorms, sometimes emotional trauma, sometimes revelations. Right? So anyways, I'm a little bit of an unusual human being. I don't mind. It keeps me. I didn't wind up with a house and a mortgage and a wife and kids and a pension plan and a truck and a house and mortgage and stuff. I never will. And any attempt to feed me into that system never would have worked. Also into the academic system as a professor, it never would have worked. I'm too much of a big of a mouth. Same as I had a friend who was in intelligence, meaning government, we were friends at SFU, and he said to me, we'd love to hire you. You're really smart, but you just could never keep your mouth shut. Okay, well, now it's going to be wide open. Now it's going to be wide open. So when you have too much knowledge, your obligation is to give it away. Same thing with music. When your soul is too full of love, you form it into music and you give it away. So when I play music, I try to forget everything except maybe I feel the heavens. And I play for the heavens, or I think about, things like the cosmos, the things I know about, or certain beauty that I love. I guess I could say more about that, but I won't. I'm just going to stop this and restart and play something. I'm the next video will be called Penny Whistling at Port Haney. Penny Whistling, yeah, Penny Whistling at Port Haney. Even though I'm not down at the wharf, my neighborhood's called Port Haney. Have a good night. I'm done. I'm the young professor of my club, Skookum Run. Big Skookum signing off. Look for me in vlogs and blogs or wherever else. Facebook, wherever. I hope I'm getting your interest because I'm trying to teach. Try to teach what I know, and it's